What's up, guys? This is Big D, and once again, you're watching Big D Films. Welcome back for yet another edition of the Shattered Glass Saloon, where we talk things motorcycles. I hope all of you were somehow able to enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday, given everything that's still going on in the world that we live in still today. Speaking of being thankful for things, today I'm looking back at some of the things, specifically the roads that I'm thankful for, that I've actually had the privilege and the pleasure of being able to ride and really enjoy over the years. And so that's what we're doing today. So pull up a seat, grab yourself a drink, and let's get this started. Cheers. As I have mentioned, this is a top 5 list of my favorite roads that I've ever ridden on my motorcycle. Let's jump right into it. Number 5, Tail of the Dragon, US 129, Tennessee, North Carolina. The Tail of the Dragon is synonymous with motorcyclists, and actually not even just with motorcyclists, but motorists in general. It is down in Tennessee, and eventually you cross over to the North Carolina border, and it's famous for its 318 curves and 11-mile stretch. It's known for its scenery, and it's known for being somewhat challenging, specifically to new riders. I had the privilege in 2019 of being able to ride the Tail of the Dragon several times. And the first time, even before going down there, I had a lot of people, kind of filling my head up with, almost horror stories of the Dragon, how difficult it is, and the twists and the turns, and, if you're not prepared or you're not paying attention, just how bad things can really get. And so I kind of had a negative stigma about the Tail of the Dragon before I went down there, and then go figure, when we do go down there, and the first time I got to ride the Tail of the Dragon, we were on our way to our hotel, and we had to ride the Dragon in order to get to the hotel, and it just happened to be raining that day also, so the roads were kind of wet and slick. But we took our time, it was all right, and it was still a lot of fun, and even after that, I got to ride the Dragon several more times while on that trip, and it was just a blast. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of, being able to get to a steady pace. It was just constant turn, up, down, turn. And I really enjoy that kind of thing. And I did get to enjoy the scenery also while being able to do it. The only thing that I have about the Dragon is it's a little too touristy for my taste. There was a lot of traffic, it seemed like, at all times on the Dragon. Not just other motorcyclists, but a lot of other motorists. We got some other trucks, too, sometimes, that didn't feel like they really belonged on the Dragon. They took up a lot of space. And whether it's this sort of ride or any kind of ride, especially for motorcyclists, you'll know this. No matter how fast or slow you're going, as long as you're going your own pace, you're able to enjoy the ride. And there was a couple times while on the Dragon that we got stuck behind a slower vehicle. And, I understand for safety reasons. I get all that. But it just, being stuck behind like one of these slower vehicles, and we had to go slower than I would have liked. And I didn't get to really enjoy, the twists and turns of the Dragon. And, going with a little bit more speed on occasions to, get that feel and that adrenaline up a little bit. And there were police officers and, it just too many people. Again, a little too touristy for my liking. But other than that, the Dragon was a lot of fun, and I would love to be able to go back down there and do it again. And if nothing else, we got the pictures that the photographers on the side of the road took as mementos of the occasion, which was really cool in and of itself. Number 4, 26, from Copper Harbor to Phoenix, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. 26 is in the northernmost part of Michigan, and it's right up along Lake Superior, going up to Copper Harbor. There's one main road that takes you right through the peninsula to Copper Harbor from the little town of Phoenix. Now, we took that road, but on the way back, we took 26, and being able to ride right along the water with Lake Superior, and it had its own twists and turns, and it was just so much fun. It was almost like a roller coaster, but on top of having that roller coaster ride, we got to see Lake Superior, and it was a beautiful sunshiny day, and you had some woods on the other side. Specifically, once you get past the little town of Eagle Harbor, that's when it was the best. There was a little bit of hazards, mind you. I mean, things really start to open up, and there's some beaches, and we started seeing some sand and stuff even blowing across the roads. But as long as you kind of take it easy and you pay attention to those things, it really wasn't that bad. It was so much fun. It takes roughly about 37 minutes, and it was roughly around 24 miles. And it was one of the most beautiful things I think I had ever seen. And it was one of the earlier trips that I got to take. And to be able to see that kind of scenery while riding that kind of a road. And on top of that, unlike what I had mentioned with the Tail of the Dragon, there was hardly anybody around. You know, there wasn't a lot of traffic. You can go at your own pace, no matter how slow or fast you wanted to go, as long as you were, enjoying it and you were safely doing it. It was just a blast. And I would give anything to go back up into the Upper Peninsula, up to Copper Harbor, and ride 26 again. It, by far, hands down, one of the most fun roads I've ever ridden, with some of the best scenery I think I've ever seen while riding. Number 3, the Triple Nickel, the Ohio 555. The Triple Nickel is in the southern part of Ohio, towards the Hocking Hills area. It's a little east of the Hocking Hills area, but it's 62 miles from Little Hocking to Zanesville. It took roughly about an hour and a half in order to do this ride. And I tell you, I mean, if you like twists and turns just as much as I do, being able to do 60 plus miles on a road that just gave you so much of that, with the hills, the rolling curves, it was so much fun. The scenery, I don't think was quite as good as some of these other rides, but being the length of it, how long you got to go, for an hour and a half, it seems like it's just never ending, and you can just keep going and going and going, and it was such a blast. Now, there were certain little sections, too, that were a little challenging, which I like that kind of thing. I like that kind of riding because it makes you pay attention, and it makes you think, it makes you use your brain, and you really have to concentrate. And there are a couple times that if you weren't quite paying attention to what you're doing, it could have got a little hairy there. But if you're paying attention and you're really focused and honed in to what's in front of you, and be able to ride this ride, sweep through these corners. I mean, there were at points you could start hauling about 60 mile an hour, and then you slow it down and you do some, rolling curves up some hills and back down into the valley. It was just such a blast. I loved every single minute of it, and I can't wait to be able to go back down there at some point in my life. I mean, at least I hope to be able to ride the Triple Nickel. If you're ever in southern Ohio, near Zanesville, which is a bit east of Columbus, you gotta ride the Triple Nickel. You won't be disappointed. It's a blast. Number 2, the Blue Ridge Parkway from Cherokee to Asheville, North Carolina. The Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina spans, I believe it's a couple hundred miles. Don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure exactly. And unfortunately, in 2019, I didn't get the chance to ride the entire length of the Blue Ridge Parkway. I only got to ride roughly about 86 miles of the Blue Ridge Parkway from Cherokee to Asheville. But the parts that I did get to ride were just gorgeous. It takes you up into the mountains. At one point, we even hit the highest level, the highest point as far as elevation in the mountains that you could attain on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which was roughly around 6,053 feet. And once you get there and you pull off to some of the pull-offs that are on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you just see nothing but mountains for miles, as far as the eye can see. And then once you're riding the Blue Ridge Parkway, there are twists and turns, but it's not quite like the Triple Nickel. It's not anywhere close to the Tail of the Dragon. It's gradual. But you still have some hills. And then you have some tunnels. Getting to be able to roll through the tunnels, come back out of the tunnel, and you just see all of these mountains. And just, it's hard for me to explain the scenery whilst riding such a nice, fun road. I would love at some point to be able to get back down there, and not only would I love to be able to ride this section of the Blue Ridge Parkway again, I would love to be able to take that even further, because I would like to see even more of the mountains. I'd like to be able to see what else the Blue Ridge Parkway itself, as far as a road, what else it has to offer as far as a riding experience. I think I only got a little taste of it, but just that little taste of it is one of my most memorable and fondest moments of ever being out on my bike and out riding. It was amazing. The view was breathtaking, and it was just so much fun. Now, before I get to my number one, I have a few honorable mentions. Being able to just condense this list down to just 5 was pretty difficult to do. And by the end of it, when it was all said and done, I had a couple others I would have loved to included on this list. And even if I did a top 8 or a top 10, by the time we get past the top 5, I wasn't sure exactly where I would have placed some of these anyway, but I feel like they're very relevant because they were so much fun and they stand out in my mind. So here's a few honorable mentions. Honorable mention: Moonshiners 28, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. Moonshiners 28 is an amazing ride. It's roughly about 103 miles overall, and when we did it, we didn't get to do the whole thing, unfortunately, but it was a very long day, and even the section we did was still 94 miles and took us roughly around 2.5 hours. We did even stop a few other times along the way at some of the roadside attractions. We got to see Bridal Veil Falls. We got to see Dry Falls. And on top of that, the road was just so much fun. It was a blast. I loved it. Again, the scenery was beautiful. We had some rock formations on the one side, and you could see almost like some mountain ranges or something, over to the other side, along with the waterfalls. And to me, personally, I thought it was kind of cool to be able to roll through, like, different sections of 3 different states in just a couple hours. To me, I thought that was cool. So Moonshiners 28 was a lot of fun. Definitely an honorable mention for this list. Honorable mention: H58 from Munising to Grand Marais, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Right along the coastline of the Upper Peninsula is H58. And H58 was a lot of fun. There was a lot of things to see. We got to go to a overlook that overlooked the Pictured Rocks, and the Pictured Rocks is something to behold of itself. I've had the privilege to be able to take the Pictured Rocks boat tour, and they take you up along the Pictured Rocks, the different rock formations, and they tell you about different rock formations, what they look like, and just being able to see that was so cool. And later on, I got to ride H58, and the overlook, you get to see different versions, or a different viewpoint, I should say, of some of the Pictured Rocks while you're out looking over Lake Superior. And then the ride itself was a lot of fun as well. There was no traffic whatsoever. We could literally go at our own pace. We could ride it however we wanted. And on top of that, once we start making our way towards Grand Marais, there was Grand Sable Lake that we got to ride past, and that was beautiful in and of itself. That I mean, H58, if I'm not mistaken, does stretch a little further than this, but from Munising to Grand Marais was beautiful, and I loved it, and I would love to be able to ride that ride again. Honorable mention, US 12, the Irish Hills, Michigan. US 12 in the Irish Hills it's pretty close to home for me. It's got a little special place in my heart. It's one of the only ones, and actually it's really the only one that's even on this list, that is in a okay distance away from me. I don't have to ride several hundred miles to get to it. And it was one of the first roads that I started riding and started really experiencing shortly after riding my bike. It's got some sweeping twists and turns. There's a few little hills. It's nothing extravagant compared to anything else that's even on this list. But as you roll through the Irish Hills, you get to, it's almost like stepping back in time. The road is a lot of fun, but you go past an old abandoned prehistoric forest. They got Mystery Hill. There's the observation towers that have been in many of my videos here on the channel. US 12 spans all the way from Detroit to Chicago, but just the Irish Hill section holds a special place in my heart. It's beautiful, and it's so much fun. And US 12 really was like the highway between Detroit and Chicago before I-94 became a thing, and now it's kind of just fun to just kind of go through there, and that's hence why a lot of these places have been abandoned over the years since then. So just being able to ride through there, it's a fun road to ride, and it's kind of like stepping back in time to a degree. But since it is so close to me, and I get to ride it about any time I want, and it's one of those twisty roads I kind of really started to learn on, it's got a special place in my heart, and I just love it. It's a lot of fun. Number 1, Tennessee 116 of the Devil's Triangle, Tennessee. Without a doubt, my number 1 favorite road I've ever ridden is Tennessee 116. It's 1/3 of the Devil's Triangle. The Devil's Triangle is made up of 116 along with 62 and 330. The entire full loop, the entire triangle is about 44 miles. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to ride the entire triangle. It was on our big trip in 2019, and we were sort of making our way back up here to Michigan, and so we got to hit a section of the triangle, but we didn't get a chance to do the rest of it because if we were to take the other section, we were kind of going back the way that we came, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But we did get to ride 116, and that section was roughly about 26 miles. It took us nearly an hour, and the Devil's Triangle, to me, had a little bit of everything. It's got a little scenery, and it's calm, cool, and collected. You get to just cruise about 60 miles an hour, and then there's sections of it that I describe as just getting angry. And so you could be cruising, and the next thing you know, bam, hairpin turn. And as soon as you make that hairpin turn, there's another one, and then another one. And you really got to be on your toes on some of that. You could really be cruising, and that's just a couple sections. There are other sections where, there's kind of like a drop-off, and as soon as you got that drop-off, hard left or hard right, there were little sections of it that were starting to fall, the road itself, starting to fall off the edge. Little sections of it starting to crumble, so you kind of had to watch, that section as well. So again, it was one of them things, like I explained earlier, that you had to pay attention, and it made you use your brain. It made you think. It made you stay on your toes. And so it was, I guess, stimulating for the mind. And I love that sort of thing. It was a lot of fun. It had some scenery. It was challenging at points, and it was extremely challenging at other points. And then it would just kind of relax, and then it would surprise you again. It was never ending for nearly an hour, and I loved every last bit of 116 of the Devil's Triangle in Tennessee, and I would give anything to be able to head back down there today and go back and ride that. It was so much fun, and to me, nothing else that I've ridden up to this point compares to Tennessee 116 of the Devil's Triangle. My favorite road that I've been able to ride to this point, bar none. So there you have it, guys. That is my list of the top 5 favorite roads that I've personally ever had a chance to ride on my motorcycle. Now, I'm sure to a lot of people, this list might not sound like anything. I'm sure there's a lot of people that go, you haven't talked about this, or you haven't talked about that one. You're missing that one. You're missing out on so much. And I know I am. There's a lot of different motorcycle roads and routes, very well-known ones that I unfortunately haven't had the chance to experience. I just either haven't had that kind of time. I can't travel that far. There's just a lot of them I haven't experienced yet. Well, this is a list of things that I have personally experienced, and that's why these ones make my list. Now, I have a lot on my bucket list, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of them I want to experience, and sometime down the road, this list most likely would change. But for now, this is my top 5 list of my favorite roads that I've ever ridden on my motorcycle. And with that, the Shattered Glass Saloon is closed. But that's where you guys come in. Drop down in the comments. I want to hear. Tell me some of your favorite motorcycle roads. Some of your favorite routes. Where do you like to go? What are some of the roads and routes that you've experienced for yourself personally that just make you go, oh, this is the end all be all. It doesn't get much better than this. Is it just the road itself? Is it the scenery? Is it a mixture of the two? Is it that it's a little challenging? Is it all those things? I want to know. Please drop your comments below so that we can keep this discussion going in the after hours. But until next time, I am Big D. You've been watching Big D Films. And until next time, we'll catch you down the road.